So welcome everyone. I'm Gretchen Winters. I'm the Director of Marketing for Bursch Travel, Pegasus Travel. And we appreciate your time tonight in coming to hear more about Princess Cruises Panama Canal cruising. I know it's one of the things on my bucket list. I would just think it would be so fascinating and interesting, not only to see what the canal is all about, but then the routing as you get there. I think some interesting ports that they stop along the way. So tonight with me, I have Joe Sieb. He is our account manager with Princess Cruises and knows everything about Princess Cruises. He's the expert, resident expert. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joe. And then at the end, like I said, there is the chat box. We have everybody on mute, just helps with background noise. But if you have a question, you can pop it in the chat box. I'll be watching for that. At the end, we can then go through any questions that come up there, or get everybody unmuted if you have some questions and kind of go through that. And then I'll kind of give you a review on the best way to reach out to your Bursch Travel advisor to have help researching any kind of availability, pricing, and so forth. Just a couple of different ways to reach us. So Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to, oh, look at that. I'm Moselle Lar. I'm not Moselle Lar. I'm actually Gretchen Winters, but we love to, we're interchangeable. So anyhow, nice. Joe, go ahead, take it. I will mute myself and take it away.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Gretchen. Gretchen and I and Bursch Travel have held these events of different sorts in person and virtually as well for years and years and years. The reason we do that is because there is so much that goes into your decision, especially with what we refer to as a destination cruise, which is simply kind of in lay terms, a cruise destination where the destination is the reason you're doing it, not really the cruise necessarily, but the destination itself. So others like that are really, the Princess fleet is always cruising destinations like that, Alaska, all over the breadth of Europe, etc. We're a worldwide cruise line, and Panama Canal is one of our highlights. So I said a moment ago that I was reading as we were getting started. I was reading my book, 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. And I was hoping I was going to get to it today before we started this evening. And I did. I just turned the page to 803, and it's Panama Canal. So I'm going to read the opening sentence to you. Built across the narrowest point between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, the epic Panama Canal remains one of the greatest engineering achievements of the 20th century. We all know that. The network of dams and locks linking two oceans took more than 75,000 workers, more than 10 years to build. Bankruptcies, mismanagement, and a whole lot more go into the story. So I just thought I'd share that with you. It was actually somebody at Bursch Travel that gave me my book, 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. Gretchen, I think if I'm not mistaken, you have that book in every office. Yes. And it's really highlighted. And Panama Canal is actually the next itinerary I'm personally planning to go on as early as January or February. So anyway, Princess Cruises Panama Canal. All right. Oh, before I forget, at 8 o'clock tonight, the TV show The Real Love Boat airs again at 8 p.m. Central Time, as it does every Wednesday for about 10 or 12 weeks. Last week being the first. It's a new TV reality show on dating. So it's really quite exciting. Please, if you have a chance, as soon as we're done tonight, get a bag of potato chips, go in the living room, turn the TV on at 8 o'clock, and you'll see The Real Love Boat. And it's all about experiences on board our ship. If anybody's old enough to remember the original Love Boat show, Princess was the backdrop for that show, two of our oldest and original ships. And to support that right now, we have what's in the marketplace called the Love Boat Sale. And that includes all destinations, Alaska, Europe, Caribbean, and Panama Canal sailings. And that promotion lasts for bookings made through October 31st, which of course Gretchen's staff would inform you of. But it includes a $100 excursion credit for a shore excursion, as well as a great price Wi-Fi, gratuities, now known as crew appreciation, and a beverage package. So it's a great promotion. Every
Joe,
princess, go ahead.
Joe,
Gretchen.
sorry, I just want to jump in. And don't worry, that information is on the Bursch Travel website. So again, if you go onto the Bursch Travel website under specials, you'll see the Princess Cruise sale information there. You can click on that and all the details are there. So if you want to follow up and just get a reminder of what Joe reviewed, it is accessible on our website.
A really good point that you don't really have to take notes tonight necessarily or try to remember it all. And this is being recorded. Every princess story starts with our shared purpose as a company and our core values. And our shared purpose goes like this. It's to share our world, which today that's Panama Canal. Princess is a worldwide destination cruise line, but Panama Canal is one of our key destinations. Share our hearts, protect the earth, leaving behind a smaller environmental footprint, which is really key. I mentioned at a seminar that I conducted last week that somebody in our business, one of Gretchen's colleagues in the business, told me a while back that we really, and me in particular, should talk about protecting the earth even more because they only promote companies that protect the earth. So by all means, we're very environmentally concerned and keep everything moving that direction. So and to create lasting memories, those are the key parts of our shared purpose. We really urge you to think about when you come home, if you share your memories and excitement with your friends and neighbors, then we know we've accomplished what we've set out to do. A couple of things about Panama Canal cruising. And to start with, I like it to talk about what to expect from your canal cruise. Of course, the cruise is going to sail through the Caribbean before it gets to the canal, and then either cruise all the way to the Pacific side or return back to Florida. But a couple of things that kind of jump out at me that I think are really important in terms of being prepared. Number one, it's really the only way to see the canal. Okay. At one time, I was told it cost us, and this is some years ago, $180,000 to pay to have one of our ships transit the canal. So there really isn't any other way to say it. However, there is a story that someone once swam Panama Canal, and the charges are based on water displacement. And so while it costs a princess ship $180,000 or so to cruise the canal, to pass through the canal, this swimmer was charged 26 cents. So just kind of an interesting statistic, I think. Come prepared. It would be similar to visiting the glaciers in Alaska, the fjords in Norway, maybe cruising around Cape Horn, the Strait of Magellan. There really isn't any other way to see it. So by all means, be prepared that way. And then something else that I'm a strong proponent on is, of course, like many of you are, is to really read about the destination before you get there. Then when you're on board the ship during the Panama Canal Day and you're hearing the narration from a princess speaker on board the ship talking about the canal and the building of it all, you're going to understand it that much better, having read about it once before. There's a great book. I'm into books today. This one is called The Path Between the Seas. The author's name is David McCullough, and it's an awesome book, quite long, about 700 pages long. It'll tell you everything about the building of the original locks of Panama Canal. So it's really worth your time. It's one of the first things I picked up when I first started in the business to learn about the canal. You really only have to pack and unpack one time with any destination cruise itinerary, this being one of them. And the more exotic a destination is, the more likely this is important. So rather than having to go to your hotel and pack and get on a motor coach and move to the next day to a next hotel, you only have to do this one time. In the case of a round trip, Fort Lauderdale into Gatun Lake through the first set of Atlantic side of the ocean locks, and back to Fort Lauderdale, typically a 10-day experience. You visit six ports of call and 6 countries, really. And again, only having to pack and unpack one time. Vacation at your own pace is real key. And in the case of Princess, you get to return to the comforts of the ship each evening. And that includes both dining, a dining menu that you're used to and comfortable with, as well as entertainment as well. And we will at times bring on board the ship for just a port or two, some local entertainment, and have some other festivities on board the ship that speak to the destination. Studies tell us the 3 top reasons we want to go on a Panama Canal cruise is, number one, just to experience and see all of the engineering that went into Panama Canal and what that was all about. And it's really quite a story. And then since the original locks were completed in 1914, there's a new set of locks as well, and all that went into that. And I have some good photos to show about that. Experiencing all of the beautiful landscape, the scenery, the rainforest throughout the area, and the diverse cultures of both Central and South America. This is one of the things that, as I travel more and more, one of the things I enjoy the most is really getting really close to the locals and enjoying their company. And we have shore excursions that will speak to that, where you really feel a sense of the destination. So here's kind of a typical map of a typical itinerary. And this is what I'll use as my sample tonight, from Fort Lauderdale, cruising through the Caribbean, and then arriving the locks on the Atlantic side. I want you to take a really, really close look. The map is pretty small, but if you see where it says Panama, the locks and the canal actually goes from the northwest to the southeast. A little bit counterintuitive, but that's the direction the locks actually go. And that's the direction of the crossing of the isthmus. All right, very nice. There's a sample ship of one of our ships in the canal. Just kidding. Nobody's laughing. That's my joke of the day. But
I'm laughing, Joe. I would hope.
Here's one of the original ships to go through the canal. Maybe this was the first one. I don't know. There's been over 1 million ships transit Panama Canal since the original locks were created. All right, a couple of things about Princess, then we'll get into kind of walking through a sample itinerary. We've been in business since '65, headquartered in Los Angeles. The ships are registered either British or Bermudan. The real 3 highlights that really jump out is that we are what's referred to in the business a destination cruise line, where we spend as much time and invest as much in the destination itself as we do the cruising experience. We consider ourselves the consummate host, and we've been cruising Panama Canal since 1967. So I don't have my calculator handy, but that's a long, long time that we've been cruising Panama Canal. And we've been in kind of a leadership role all these years. All right, a few things about the canal that really jump out. Number one, the original locks were created and completed in 1914. They took over 10 years. Many lives were lost. And then since then, there's been new locks created, a new channel. But just to give you some information, and you'll be the only ones on the ship that know this, but a ship that can fit through the original locks is called a Panamax ship, okay? A ship that's too large to fit through the original locks is called a post-Panamax ship. And then a ship that, the larger size ships that can fit through the new locks are called new Panamax. So it's just some Panama Canal lingo for you. So really interesting. All right, so I mentioned already the isthmus. That's by definition a narrow Can you hear me now? Gretchen, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, sorry, Joe. Yes.
Okay.
think the last, you were just talking about the different types of ships. So,
Right. So there's three different types of definitions of the ships. The ships that can fit through the original locks are called Panamax ships. Ones that are too large to fit through the original locks are called post-Panamax. And then the new canal that was completed a few years ago, those locks, the ships that can fit through those locks are called new Panamax. So just some definitions there. The Isthmus of Panama is 51 miles wide, is all the wide it really is. You can see from this map on the bottom, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, there really is 51 miles. The ship is raised 85 feet from one ocean to the other. And then Gatun Lake, the largest man-made lake ever made, at least at that time, was created, 163 square miles, and really quite amazing. Bear with me a second here. All right. So again, we have a couple of different size ships. If we're cruising between Fort Lauderdale through the entire Atlantic and Pacific locks and cruising up to Los Angeles or San Francisco, that would either be on one of our ships, either Coral or Island Princess. They're 2,000 passenger ships. Some of our larger ships will cruise through the new locks from Fort Lauderdale into Gatun Lake and back. Those locks can fit a quite a bit larger size ship. Shore excursions are such in Panama Canal, and really they're similar any place we cruise in the world. We typically divide them up into about 5 categories. One category referred to as activities and adventures, which is something that's going to be a little bit more active, where you're brought someplace, you might do a zip line or something like that, explore on your own. Our shore excursions, where we really provide you transportation to maybe a city center, and you're dropped off and you tour on your own, and then you're brought back later. Something regarding nature and wildlife. This is really key for the rainforest and the culture and landscape on the Panama Canal itineraries here, with shore excursions where you can view monkeys, sightseeing and city tours, the type that we're probably most used to experiencing. And then there might be some special interest itineraries, shore excursion itineraries that might include a wine tasting or something along those lines. And we also have a new category called local connections, where we've engaged with somebody quite close, quite local, and from there they'll take us to little known tourist spots, really. So very nice. All right. All right, so one sample itinerary is when we might board in Fort Lauderdale. So you might go there a day before and add a day to your trip and explore the beauty of Fort Lauderdale for evening and morning before you board the ship. But the ship will set sail, and typically we'll have a full day at sea, our first day at sea. So by all means, explore the ship, learn everything that's going on in the ship, maybe enjoy the evening theater entertainment, or maybe enjoy a spa. And one thing about the spa treatments to keep in mind, if you will, is you can pre-reserve these. And by all means, you probably want to do that ahead of time, because whenever we have our days at sea, those are the days that, guess what, everybody wants their spa treatment. So by all means, they fill up. So keep that in mind as you're preparing. Jamaica is one of our first ports of call. Typically, you might decide to climb Dunn River Falls here. Have you done this, Gretchen? This is one of the first things I did in the Caribbean 25 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's a fun excursion, and so that's where you're docking in Jamaica's Ocho Rios.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So then Dunn's River Falls is right near there.
So there's quite a few different shore excursion choices, this just being one of them, but it's it's really interesting. They'll have an employee that's just really scrubbing the rocks all day to keep
Yeah, you
them
can
from
kind
being
of sit and
slippery.
just get like a nice jacuzzi on some of the rocks where the waterfalls kind of rain down on your back. Hey, Joe, we just got a question on the spa treatments. Do they cost extra?
They do, and they're a la carte. There's really not a spa package to purchase typically. There might be a couple that are joined together, but they do cost additional, yes.
And let
And
me
they-
ask you this, as long as we're talking about this spa, you said the pre-reserve. If you did pre-reserve before you boarded the ship, and then you decided you needed to change your appointment, or you needed to cancel, or you wanted to do something different, do you have that flexibility, or is there a penalty if you pre-reserve?
I would suggest that when you're pre-reserving it, to just make sure that you read the disclaimer clearly. Because likely there might be some flexibility, but it might be based on some other factors of some kind.
Okay.
Okay. And then, the difference between maybe a heated shave for me, which I probably need right now, as opposed to a massage, might be the penalty might be quite a bit different. So kind
Right.
of keep that in mind.
Okay.
All right, then we keep getting things pop up on my screen. I can't quite see it all. But anyway, another day at sea. Just maybe enjoy the casino. That's always a hot spot on board the ships. It's very popular. Beautiful buffet. We'll always have our movies under the stars, outdoor theater, outdoor movie. So it's poolside. We have a very large outdoor movie screen, of which there's only, I think, 7 left in the state of Minnesota. But we have one on every one of our ships. And in the evening, we'll bring out what I call evening cushions to put on the lounge chairs around the pool. And we serve popcorn, and you can enjoy an outdoor movie. So great day. Cartagena, a short excursion that I kind of picked out that looked kind of interesting to me for the Cartagena port of call, is to really do what is referred to as an old town city tour, visiting different historical sites, museums and cathedrals, some time for shopping, which we almost always provide. But it gives you a glimpse into the past and some of the original buildings in Cartagena. Then our day.
Joe, I've been there, and it's really an interesting city. Very, with the just the architecture and the culture. It's really different when you're thinking Caribbean, and now you're, in South America, and it kind of sets the pace a little bit for where you're headed too, because you get more from the Caribbean, more into like Central America. So it's a great destination.
With the Dutch influence, for sure. And then then we go through the Atlantic locks, and the ship will rise 85 feet into what's called Gatun Lake. That's the lake that the ship will transit before it goes to the Pacific side. But Gatun Lake is 163 square miles. If you're doing a shore excursion, or let me back off. If you're getting off the ship to do a shore excursion, you have to do a shore excursion with Princess. There isn't any other way to do it. You're not able to get off here on your own, but you can get off the ship, do a shore excursion. There's a train ride to the Pacific side to view the Pacific locks if you want. But the canal itself is just one of the engineering highlights of really of all time. There was about 6,000 men that lost their lives building the original lock. So it's really quite a story. I think the story is that the French started the canal in around 1850. We finally got involved in the early 1900s, bought all of the equipment that they had been using for $40 million, and spent 10 years building the original locks. So it's really quite a story. We cut through solid granite rock 51 miles to get through to the Pacific side. And by having the canal, 1 million ships have crossed through the canal over the years. It saves 8,000 miles as opposed to going around South America. So just think of how much time it has saved and how much resource it has saved in transporting of goods. Here's a few pictures of the building of the new set of locks just some years back, within the last 15 or 20 years.
Hey, Joe, I have another question. So when you enter, you start going through the locks, and then you're in the lake. What is the time? Do you know the how long it takes to do that? And then when you're in the lake, is that when people can get off the ship and do an excursion? And then it must take a while, and you must be there for a while. So can you?
Well, I don't have the exact timing, but to go through the locks, it's really just a couple hours maybe or less.
Okay.
Then we're in the lake the majority of the day. And then that is where, if you want to do a shore excursion, you disembark. And your question is really timely. So we're in the we're in the canal. This is not finished here yet, but this is the canal itself. And then further forward there would be Gatun Lake. And then we're in the lake, we get off the ship, do a shore excursion. And then if it's a round trip, Panama Canal itinerary back to Fort Lauderdale, the ship will go back through the locks to Cologne, the port of call at the entrance to the locks on the Atlantic side. And your shore excursion will bring you back here to reboard the ship. You don't get back on the ship in the lake itself. So there isn't a whole lot in Cologne other than it's a port. There's a little bit of shopping around the docks and around the pier, but mainly it's used just as a place to board the ship. All right, then our next port of call might be Limon, Costa Rica. Like any Costa Rica itinerary, it's so U.S. friendly, but in this case, kind of an unofficial mascot of Princess is a sloth, and you can visit. And I believe we're the only ones with a shore excursion to visit the sloth sanctuary. So say that, Gretchen, if you will, 5 times real quickly. You'll learn all about the sloths and their habitat. I read once where they only move like a foot in 8 hours. Really quite an interesting story.
Sounds like some people I know.
There you go. There you go. All right. Another wonderful day at sea. We'll typically have what we refer to as a festival of the world, or a festivals of the world, that will speak to the local destination. We have a love boat disco deck party, but lots of activity. Enjoy your day at sea. Port of call in Grand Cayman. A lot of us have been to Grand Cayman before. You might have had an opportunity to visit Hell, which is really the Cayman Turtle Center, and maybe have a taste of some local rum. Another day at sea, enjoying everything the ship has to offer. This coming winter, the ship that's on the itinerary round trip into Gatun Lake back to Fort Lauderdale is one of our newest ships, Enchanted Princess. So if you watch the TV show tonight, the TV show is filmed on Regal Princess, which is pretty much an identical sister ship to the ship that will be on this Panama Canal itinerary, called Enchanted Princess. All right, then back to Fort Lauderdale. So it's a wonderful 10-day experience. If you'd rather go all the way through the canal, we have itineraries that are, rather than 10 days, they're 15 days. They cruise from Fort Lauderdale through the Atlantic locks, raising up 85 feet. The ship will transit Gatun Lake. It takes most of the day to get to the Pacific locks, where the ship is lowered back 85 feet. We'll call on several Mexican ports on our way to Los Angeles. All right, a couple of kind of important items just to kind of wrap up here, and then we'll see if we have some more questions. But pack like you would on any cruise vacation, but expect it's going to be warm. And you want to spend quite a bit of day out of your time on deck, especially during our Panama Canal day. So by all means, make sure you bring the right kind of covering because you can expect it to be quite sunny and quite hot. Okay. We say the same thing about preparing when you're in Alaska and Glacier Bay National Park about making sure you've packed the right way because you want to spend all day out on deck. There'll be typically 2 or 3 nights on a 10-day itinerary that are called formal for the evening dress, and the rest of the evenings will be considered smart casual dress. After you've sat down with one of Gretchen's staff and picked out a cabin, picked out a date, and made your purchase, the additional spending that you can expect would be shore excursions in the ports of call, and then specialty dining as well. We have a couple of specialty restaurants on board the ships. And then if you have purchased what we call our Princess Plus plan, that includes your Wi-Fi for one device, crew appreciation, formerly known as gratuities, and a beverage package as well. We have a great military program. If anybody has a history with the military or any kind of heritage, make sure you let Gretchen know. We'll ask you for a copy of your DD 214 form, and we'll send it in to see if you qualify for an added shipboard credit by virtue of your heritage. Make sure you have your passport up to date, have it with you. And we like to say now's the time to book, right, Gretchen? Most any itinerary right now for Panama Canal would be into the future a little bit, where your deposit under our Love Boat promotion is only $100 per person and is fully refundable until somebody from Gretchen's staff tells you it's not, but typically it's about 90 days in advance of your trip. So
and now, because it is limited, it's just the limited number of ships that offer this itinerary. It is something that you want to consider booking early enough so you can get the type of cabin you want and so forth. Joe, I had another question come up, just to get a basic idea. What would be the approximate cost for a 10-day cruise starting and ending in Fort Lauderdale?
well, without getting into what promotional pricing might be, but your colleague John today put aside some space for us for this itinerary for a March sailing with a balcony cabin, and the price came to right around $2,500 for a balcony cabin. I'm going to step out a little bit out of the box and suggest that we probably have a promotional rate that's lower than that right now in the marketplace.
That's per person?
And we always speak in terms of per person. That's correct.
And that would not include the air.
That would not include the air and some other ancillary items, but that's going to be kind of the cruise price in that neighborhood.
Okay.
So,
and then the cruise, it just leaves out of Fort Lauderdale. There aren't any other ports that other than LA. It's Fort Lauderdale, or Fort Lauderdale, LA, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's it for the questions so far.
Well, like I started out the call with tonight is this is the itinerary I plan to be on next. Sometime after the first of the year. Hopefully there'll be some employee space available. So
if not, we've got some space available in March.
There you go. You do. Yes. Yes. So, well, thank you, Gretchen. Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for attending.
Well, if you have some more questions, I'm going to see if I can. I don't know if I can unmute. I can't. Well, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them into the chat box while I kind of just review the best way to reach out to a Bursch or Pegasus travel advisor. Things are with the recovery of travel now after COVID and everybody being pretty much limited on where they could go, the world has opened up again for us, which is fantastic, but it's made things extremely, extremely busy. So what we're really recommending is the best way to get in contact with a Bursch travel advisor. If you have your Bursch travel advisor's direct email or phone number, you can reach out to them. But we're finding the most efficient way to provide the service that we're known for is to make an appointment to meet with that advisor. That way they can spend their time with you and answer all the questions that you have. So what we're recommending is either reach out directly to your travel advisor by phone or by email and request an appointment to discuss, different options on a Panama Canal cruise. If you don't have an advisor, you can certainly go to our website, burschtravel.com, go to the locations area, and there is a form you can fill out. It basically is a travel questionnaire. We ask a lot of the details that help us get started. You can submit that, and then we will contact you to find the appropriate travel advisor to work with and make arrangements for an appointment on that. And as I mentioned, this webinar has been recorded, and we will have it on the website hopefully by tomorrow under services, under travel seminars. And you can rewatch it or pass it on to others that might be interested. If you're thinking of traveling as a family group or as a group, they can listen to it. And the details of the sale are also on the website under specials. I have a couple other questions that came in here while we were waiting. Okay, is there, this would be for you, Joe, is there a list of optional excursions and their costs for?
Absolutely, that's a really good question. So if you, after you make your booking, there'll be other ways for you to view the excursions, but if you wanted to right now, you can simply go to princess.com. On the left-hand side is of the toolbar, there's something called that says Plan Your Cruise. You can click on Plan Your Cruise in the drop-down box, choose Panama Canal, and from there you can choose the individual ports. So by all means, you can see a description of the itinerary and what the cost is as well. And I'm looking at the cost of our March sailing a little bit more closely here. So there's balcony cabins for in the neighborhood of $2,500. And then there are the taxes, fees, and port expenses of about $400 in addition to that. And I'm suspecting that there's going to be rates that are probably lower than this as well. And then if you decided you wanted a Princess Plus package, that would be additional as well. So that's really good question.
And speaking to that, this is perfect. This segues just beautifully. Another question that came in was about how much does the Princess Plus program add to the normal ticket price, like a percentage?
It's pretty simple. It's a straight up $50 per day per person.
Okay, perfect. So $50 per day per person in addition, and that includes the drink package, the Wi-Fi, and the gratuities.
That's right.
Okay, and then the question came up, what is all included in the base price? And you can speak to that. I think you've kind of mentioned it, but just to review it again.
Well, the base price includes really, with limited exception, all of your dining on board the ship, all of the entertainment. Every ship in our fleet now is considered an Ocean Medallion ship, and your Ocean Medallion experience is part of the experience as well, and that's all included. Any Wi-Fi that's needed for the medallion is included as well. If you wanted Wi-Fi for personal use, other use, would be additional. Unless you did purchase the Princess Plus package. So it gets to be a lot of detail that's hard to talk about generically, but the vast majority of your experience is included. So I think that's the best way to say it. If you're cruising for the first time, you probably won't venture to one of our specialty restaurants because there's just so much to explore that's included. If you've cruised many times with Princess, you may be looking for different alternatives and And that's when you might explore those specialty restaurants where there's an additional cover charge.
And they're pretty minimal. I mean, that pretty much, I think, the way it's looked at, the way I understand it is that pretty much covers the additional gratuity for that staff that just goes above and beyond in what they provide, the service and the food. And I know that it's one thing that I always love to do on board ship because it's just phenomenal, the food and the service. Not that it's not phenomenal throughout the ship, but it's just a fun experience. If you have a special occasion, I really would recommend, making reservations for a specialty restaurant for sure. So any other questions? I'm going to give it a few minutes here, but a lot of these questions too, that's a great opportunity to, when you set up your appointment with your Bursch travel advisor, to talk through those different elements, those different details, and they can help navigate that for you. They're experienced with a lot of this. They can give you the details of the medallion, what that all includes, and answer any other questions that you may have. And if they don't have the answer, then Joe is on speed dial to reach out and get it right from the head guy on what it all is. So doesn't look like there are any other questions, but again, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you, Joe. It was very interesting. I love the little tidbits about the canal. Makes me kind of want to get that book and start reading it. So again, thanks so much, everyone. Please reach out to your Bursch travel advisor if you have questions, and just know that this will be recorded and on the website, hopefully by tomorrow. So good night, everyone. Have a good evening, and take care. Stay dry and warm. It's gotten cold and wet all of a sudden in Minnesota.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.